So my background is content creation, all types, lots of commercials, sorry, but a little bit of everything, lots of R's, virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. And prior to Epic, I resided in New York, having set up a content division for the world-class creation studio. And I joined Epic Games and the London Innovation Lab team around about a year ago. And our aim is to support the creation community in all their endeavours. So it occurred to me, whilst watching a production, I'm not sure if those voices, but apologies if you can. So 1 year ago, Epic did a demo at Seagrass. I don't know if anyone saw it. It was the motorbike demo, and it was pretty amazing. And it showcased in-camera VFX, virtual scouting, multi-user workflows, and it was for many of us the first time that we'd seen virtual production being used to such a sophisticated level on set. It was incredible. Now, fast track to here, only a year later, and virtual production has exploded across all areas of film and TV, specifically in-camera VFX, and we're currently tracking around about 100 stages worldwide, ranging from high-end to independent productions. And this is totally inspiring for all of us at Epic, but also for the industry as a whole, because I think we all want to democratize virtual production and break the barrier between creators and creating. And we at Epic do that in a few different ways, which I'm going to very quickly tell you about. We have initiatives like the Unreal Fellowship, we have resources like Virtual Production Primer, and we have financial help with the mega grants, and also just the small, simple things of high quality CG assets for free on the marketplace. And another great way of doing this and helping to democratize virtual production is through sharing knowledge and past experiences, which brings me to our amazing panel. So here with me today is Felix George from Happy Mushroom, his son, head of VFX at Rebellion Studios, Mariana Acuña Acosta, Chief Production Officer and co-founder of Glassbox, and finally my good friend, Sol Rogers, CEO and founder of Rewind. So hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. So today guys, I'd love to hear a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and how you found yourself here today. Then I'd love to hear through your own personal experiences, how you've been utilising virtual production and the benefits of. And then, and I'll guide us through this, but then I'd really love to hear some watch outs. This is cutting edge technology. You guys are in every way trailblazers, and I would love for us to learn from you and potentially your mild mistakes. So please do share. So Felix, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and how you have found yourself in this world of virtual production.
Of course. My name is Felix, as she said. I started in previous years ago. I had the honor to be a computer nerd that worked on productions like Wizard of Oz, where I was on set pressing the play button for 200 extras to react when the balloon is blowing up, or Jungle Book, where I was working on putting together the virtual art department, where they were using game engines to be able to explore this tech way early on. After that, I was helping put teams together for Jurassic World VR, where we were trying to create a product using film assets. Then we jumped onto Call of the Wild, and around there is when we funded Happy Mushroom. I was working at the third floor for 8 years before that. And so when we funded Happy Mushroom, we really wanted to create a virtual production pipeline that was focused around filmmakers and how to make films. And So that's the area that we've been specializing in. It's enabling filmmakers and introducing them to this pipeline in a way that they would use it. And in tandem, creating very high fidelity content, either through environments or any other avenue that the client is looking for. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey of exploring virtual production early on with the third floor, camera work, and then creating Happy Mushroom because there was a gap that I felt that existed with designing sets and how I felt that virtual production could have really benefited us in the past. We just weren't there before, but we are there now. So thank you for having me.
So interesting. Mariana, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do in this world.
Well, also my name is Mariana Acuña, and I co-founded Glassbox Technologies with Norman Wang from Australia. He comes from a very heavy virtual reality, companies and experience working with NASA, Microsoft, things like that. And I come from very heavy visual effects. I was working in movies like Alice in Wonderland and Surrogates and Treasure Island, things like that. And moved then onto the Foundry, was the Nuke Ninja and a product specialist. And then I kind of really became interested in virtual reality and dove into all the ways I'm helping filmmakers. Sorry, I keep hearing. Yeah, I'm just hearing kind of like the producer in the background. I think she's not muted herself. Sorry about that, because I just keep hearing her, so it's kind of weird. Anyway, so then I dove into virtual reality post-production workflows, helping filmmakers, kind of figure out tracking, compositing, and all of that in VR. And so then, I really saw how real time was changing the way content creation was being made, not just filmmaking, but, storytelling in itself. And I saw the potential of virtual production. And that's when Norman and I were like, well, why don't we found a company? What we saw was missing is kind of like the glue holding all the different parts of the pipeline. And we wanted to be the go-to tool makers for real time production. So, making tools for, playing back, collaborating, editing in different parts of the world, and reviewing, and just making it really easy, making tools that are off the shelf and cross-platform, software and hardware agnostic, and just really helping everybody. Like, we really want to democratize the tools for virtual production. And it's been 4 years now, almost 5, and it's been amazing. And I guess with the pandemic, what has happened is just accelerated virtual production. What we thought was going to happen in 4 years, it's now happened into 1, and we feel very lucky, and we feel like we really, we really went into the right path there.
Yeah, well, it sounds as if your whole company embodies the democratization of virtual production. Everything that you do is part of getting these tools into everyone's hands. It's fab. And Houghton, tell us your story.
Yeah, so my name's Houghton, obviously, same as everyone. So I started my career in the game industry about 12 years ago, I think. So worked on the games like GoldenEye and Sniper Elite franchise and Battles on VRs. And then I stepped into the world of the visual effects in most recent years, credit including The Lion King, where we took John Favreau's vision in Unity engine, pre-visualization all the way to the final pixel on the big screen. I also supervised the second one, the environment visual effects works, and most recently I've been involved in the Mandalorians, which we are first time actually experienced the LED backdrops and the benefits that we will receive by having a backdrop in the studio and lighting information we will get on set at the post-production visual effects houses. So last year, I had a very lucky opportunity that to come back to Rebellion, to set up the visual effects and animation divisions. So we started developing some of our internal IPs based on 2000 AD franchise, some of the game IPs. In Rebellion, we traditionally are game studios, 27 plus years making games. So in the backlog, we have large content digital asset that were created by the game divisions. So one thing that when we started setting up Rebellions is how can we neutralizing some of the game technology and for filmmaking, neutralizing this modern way, benefiting it, really gel the traditional VFX with the modern game engine technology to neutralize together. So that's how the Rebellion VFX were born. And then since then, we've been exploring the pipelines using Unreal Engine technology. And recently, we actually shot our very first production short films, which directed by the Percival. Some of you have saw it a couple months ago. And hopefully at the end of today's session, we're gonna premiere our Zombie Army cinematic, which is completely produced in Unreal Engine, which is a good example. We actually reuse the game asset and give it a second life, and also put it onto the big screens.
That's great.
So, yeah.
That's exciting. That's going to happen after this chat today.
I would hope so. Yeah, I think that's the plan. Hopefully.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Now, Sol, just you left. I'm sorry to leave you for the last, but we've got high expectations. What to say?
No worries. So I'm Sol Rogers, founder of Rewind. We're an immersive design and innovation company based out of London and Los Angeles, and we've been running for about 10 years. Our world tends to be around creating content for new technologies. So we launched Paramount's Ghost in the Shell using a VR vignette that allowed you to become a major and take over like one of the missions. We took you to space with the BBC and let you kind of get the overview of Felix climbing out on the ISS. But we also worked with Red Bull and Lyft. And most kind of high profile, Jaguar, we launched their electric car using VR as the backdrop, which actually had a whole bunch of virtual production to bring real actors and actresses into a virtual world where they actually viewed it in VR. And those technologies have just kind of expanded from there. I also chair BAFTA's Immersive Entertainment Advisory Group, so working out where AR and VR fit with the British Academy, and very much that's focused on where virtual production tools can and are used at the moment, to help us, beat some of the things we're trying to come across with the pandemic, but also to enable, us to revolutionize a little bit of the industry. And VProd really is too much of a catch-all term at the moment. We need to, and hopefully we'll get into the kind of different areas that this can be used within, but really the core of it is to try and enable people to tell better stories. And I think that kind of comes down, it won't fix a bad movie, but it will enable us to hopefully make a better one.
No, totally. Yeah. You still need a good story. So Mariana, can you tell me some of the uses that you have for virtual production or in-camera VFX and some of the benefits to that production?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So we have 3 different products right now in the market and 1 in R&D. So the ones that are right now out is Dragonfly, which is our virtual camera solution and works across the board in all platforms. And though Unreal is the preferred one, and it has a companion app, so it also works whether it works in the iPad or on the iPhone, and you can record, playback, take, do snapshots, bookmark. Snapshots is like a way of just coming back to where your camera orientation and position is in the world, and just really lets like cinematographers take advantage of what you can do virtually with a camera, which is, you can of course recreate anything that a real world camera does, but with the advantage that in the virtual world, well, you can do all kinds of, take all kinds of creative decisions that would be very expensive in the real world. And then we have Beehive, which we always call it like the Google Docs of game engines, because it's, it's a way for you to collaborate in a multi-user, multi-location, kind of asset-centric workflow. And this way, it's so you can troubleshoot your VFX, your lighting. so that you can be in VR, you know, and maybe check your face, the face and body performance of your actors, do scene modifications, or start, you know, doing VR experiences from scratch, and all that good stuff. And then we have Live Client, which is our, you know, your facial performance capture solution. And we do have a project called Mayfly in R&D for in-camera visual effects, to be able to align your virtual camera and your physical camera, and to have that it also uses a real-time AI-assisted gear, because keying is still a very, you know, very much like very manual labor process in, you know, VFX. But of course, real-time technologies is changing all that. Unfortunately, that's kind of like being left in a standstill, because that was being done with our team in China, and China did like basically shut down everything. So we had a stage there, a mock-up stage there, and China did kind of shut down, but it's coming back around. So it's looking good. And we're very excited about, you know, what that's going to bring to the table in the near future. So right now, everything's like for the virtual world, but in the future also for, you know, keying and real, just merging virtual and the physical world, VFX.
And Felix, tell us one or a couple of your experiences where you really feel as if virtual production has like saved the day. You know, what's happened to make you think, wow, this could not have been achieved any other way?
I find when I like talking about virtual production, I like talking about the humans involved and the people involved. And for a long time, what makes me passionate about coming into it is because for a long time I felt like DPs were shooting into green screen. Set decorators who used to make these gigantic sets and real sets all of a sudden weren't making sets or weren't informing VFX, because set decorators were separate from VFX. Production designers who used to create, once again, the look of the film weren't influencing as effectively as they could, because one concept art piece and passing it off to a company that's going to make a world out of it isn't the best way for a production designer to be involved. So I really find that what virtual production is doing is enabling all of them to influence their films once again. All of a sudden, a virtual production or a production designer could come in, and with virtual location scouting, he could use it similarly to how it was used in the 50s, where if he has a world that he's creating, if you were going to go to Iceland, they used to go out to Iceland and plan their films so that they could make it as cheaply as possible, because they're learning about their environment and they're in it. Now we also have, that was the first challenge. Then we wanted to target the DP. And so the DP really wants to influence his film through lighting and through thinking about his characters and through lensing. So that all of a sudden he has that influence as well. Now he could lens his films and light them in real time at a quality that, I mean, we were doing some of this before in previs, but now it's at a quality where you could get it as far as photoreal if you want, which is amazing. And then, you know, you have your set decorators, and using photogrammetry and a pipeline that satisfies both VFX and real time, your set decorator could influence post-production. All of a sudden, they could create assets, it gets captured, it comes in, and it lives both in the virtual world and the real world. And so I find that that power with the executive producer informing the budgets, and that sacred space that you create with virtual production is one of the biggest secret sauces that it has. It's what allows them to have the conversation around, how do we create this unique content or something different, but also how do we work in a budget, and how do we work in the way we used to, where there's limitations, and I want to understand them, and then I want to achieve the best I can within those limitations. So that's how I feel virtual production has enabled us the most.
That's amazing. I remember someone saying, wanting to try and unwrap how virtual production and traditional production were at odds. And the way that we sort of talk about it is that it actually, virtual production gives you superhero powers. It's like, it's a toolkit. It's a tool set that you can then apply and envelop into your production that suddenly allows for the boundaries of creativity to be pushed so far back that it's almost, it's almost unrecognizable. But also you've got this amazing creative collaboration that has been made a linear process, more and more linear over the years, and as VFX has become more sophisticated, more and more and more linear, and suddenly now they can all, I think Sol, you said something about a warm hug earlier, and it's like everyone is able to come back together on set and have a warm virtual hug.
And iterate and, come up with ideas and try to explore them way early on without the pressures that come with, obviously, production. So it's something that I feel creatives of the industry was missing for a long time, because these rooms that get created now where they could all sit down and they could think is something that I feel made filmmaking. And for many years working in previs, I missed it, where I worked on production, and I had the privilege to see them work, see them on set, see them shoot into green screens. And then I would go back to the team, and it was incomprehensible. And I would talk to VFX teams. Later on, I worked for DD and MPC, and they had no idea what these guys were doing. And these guys had no idea what these guys are doing. And that division, I feel like, is a big culprit to creativity and innovation, because it's hard to innovate when you're not listening to or considering what this individual to your right needs and how he needs to receive it. Because one of the biggest complaints that I received from production designers is that they felt like they were redoing their film 3 times, in pre, production, and post. And that is a lack of communication. And that's what virtual production is bridging, in my opinion.
I think it's a nice thing that came out of conversations with Magnopus, who did quite a lot of the Lion King virtual production work. They basically made the entire film in real time and then rendered it with MPC. But one of the main things where they were looking at was how to get traditional craftsmen, filmmakers and DOPs and cinematographers to a location which was fantastical, and allow them to shoot the movie using these new tools. Everyone's on Pride Rock looking at this amazing lion tell out a story, but they were trying to enable serendipity that happens on a film set between all those people. So there's something about making a movie when you're on the location, you can see the full location. So I think that those tools really do enable it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And
it's also the ownership of the thing, right? Because Johan Favre filmed it himself. He was the one that operating the virtual camera. And then, of course, he's the one going to be loving that shot, rather than have this iteration of, oh, move the camera here, move the camera there. Do this take again, can you do the next take? And he actually jumps onto it and filmed it. And so obviously, it's easier process, and less stress for anyone else as well. So you're able to direct.
I'm sorry.
It kind of makes it accessible. Like to everyone, it's more accessible, and it kind of loops back into everything that Mariana's company is doing, in that it allows for the tools or sections of tools to be put into everyone's hands, but key players on set can suddenly take control again, like creative control.
Hey Sam, maybe it's good to discuss the 2 variants between the LED on-set kind of in-camera virtual production and then the purely digital ones, because I think they are often get put together, but I think there was definitely 2 kind of main camps of the tools, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, for me, is like my virtual production kind of experience has always been like, the universal kind of asset thing is always the thing I'm experiencing the most as well. So on the 2 projects I'm using virtual production so far, the benefits we really having is in Rebellion, we have a photogrammetry team, and also we go on location and photogrammetry the entire location, and that allows us to be able to recreate the real set digitally in Unreal Engine or in our own engine. And then the thing is, traditionally you're doing, like Felix saying, you have the previous and then the previous is done, and then the NPC comes in, or post VFX houses comes in, and then they recreate the things again. And the assets are, some of the assets get thrown away. And to me, that's like, cost. It costs, but it's not very efficient either. So with the way so far, the way the project we're running, we took the asset and then the high fidelity asset at the start, and we use them from storyboard, pre-visualization, planning, and all the way to the end to use those assets actually on the LED backdrop or actually render in the final pixels. And we only up-res the asset, mixing with the Megascan asset from Epic as well, and wherever we need it. And the majority of assets might not need it because they're in background, they're in far background or midground. We don't actually need to touch them, they hold up. And we only need to touch up the certain asset that only in the foreground. And so it really enabled us to be able to analyze and which area we need to tackle rather than just, let's just do everything from scratch again. So to me, this universal asset concept is really beneficial, really time saving, and also enable a lot more creativity at the same time.
I'd like to add to that as well. I do want to say that it's not replacing VFX. It's a tool to enable creatives to influence VFX in many ways. And using LED screen technology, we worked on the first proof of concepts on the Mandalorian season 1. I went to all the different stages that there were, or a lot of different stages that they were looking for LED screens. We are now involved in several different projects doing this technology, and it is the kind of thing where what you need are, what I find is a good gap is tools that are production ready, that enable you to track all these assets, all these changes, because now you're in real time. So all of a sudden, one of Happy Mushroom's biggest focus is also building tools, but they're building tools for creatives to be able to do their changes quickly, tracked, and then we have a turnover process that works both for VFX, where they could grab that and do some of the shots that are not best for the LED screen, and where we could send it to the LED screen. So it's a very fascinating time now where these assets could be created for both VFX and game engines, and if they're tracked, if the changes are tracked properly, because like I said earlier, now we have VR scouts where the production designer sits in we're sending computers all over the world, and the production designer meets up with 10 other individuals virtually, and they do changes to your world in real time. So all of a sudden I have 10 high-level creatives influencing my environment, which is fascinating. And it is important to build the kind of tools that are production ready, that are going to be able to capture those changes, implement them in a way that's effective, and then deploy them to different teams. Now is when we could do that. Now is when that's a thing. And it was never before. So it's a good time to be in virtual production.
It just give you that's a good point add on top. I think it's also like what you're saying is the interactive experience that you have on set as well. Like, you'd be able to do the DOP would be able to do the lighting changes, and the set designer would be able to move the virtual set as well as the physical set together, and that part the experience is irreplaceable.
And the render power. We used to have I've worked, you used to have to render things 40 hours a frame, and all of a sudden, we carry to every single job we go, we carry a swarm server, which is Unreal Engine's version of a render farm, pretty much. And we bring that swarm server on stage. We bring that swarm server, every single job has their own swarm server where if the set decorator comes in or the DP changes the lighting and it's not photorealistic anymore, you just hit a button, it bakes it right there. Hey, go get a coffee, 15 minutes, he comes back and it's photoreal. And it's running at 60 to 90 frames per second. And so it's a completely different time. it's a kind of workflow where 10 years ago I would have died for. It was it's so amazing that we could render this quickly. And
well,
yeah,
it seems you guys are obviously incredibly passionate about virtual production, and there are lots and lots of pros. Are there, at this moment in time, are there any cons that we should make people aware of, or just be truthful about?
definitely.
I think a big one.
I think, yeah.
I think a big one is that this is not cheaper. This is not I will make my films cheaper than anything else. I think it's just it just moves the budget. It moves the budget.
Yeah, you're moving it from like the end to pre-production, so that then you can plan it better and make better decisions. Exactly. And then
But I think
it's just moving.
I think what it does remove though is there's a contingency fund that comes from traditional VFX where when you don't have the production designer know exactly what's going to happen later, and then they do something that isn't what he wanted, you have to play the game of telephone, and that game of telephone costs money. That's what virtual production is saving you, and that's where it saves. So it might not be innately obvious where it saves because you're just bringing people from over here. But I think the part that people forget, when you're in production and you do that traditional VFX a lot, that game of telephone is what brings up the bill. And that's something that you eliminate by knowing the film you're going to make at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And I do think you get, if it's well planned and well done, that you do get a better product at the end. Because of all that creative flex and collaboration and everyone in the same room. And it's the kind of quality that you can't necessarily quantify with a dollar figure on the bottom line of a production. It's a good film or a bad film. Yeah, it's a good looking film or a bad looking film.
And it minimizes the risk. All of a sudden, you're giving the power back to the filmmakers. And so, who do you want to have the power? Is it Jon Favreau and this amazing geniuses, James Cameron, or these people, or is it who knows who later on? And that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think, well, Felix, you're making a great point, which I will talk about, since this is democratizing virtual production. One of the points I like to make on this panel is like, there's so much talk about The Lion King and The Jungle Book and The Mandalorian, and let's just make it clear for people that is not the bulk of virtual production. You don't need those budgets. You don't need like an $8 million, LED wall or anything like that. Like the whole point, and also the promise of virtual production, is the fact that you can right now get a Rococo suit or an Extend suit that is like most, whatever is depending on your budget, and then get Unreal Engine, download it, execute it, go to the marketplace, get all these assets, and even get mocap sets if you don't want to get the motion capture suit, and then get all these, for example, art tools as well, and then just really start shooting with like your iPad, with your iPhone, and then just use, like, you can start actually creating a set, or kind of start blocking or doing your previews just from your house right now as a content creator, and just really start kind of diving into the promise of virtual production. For maybe there are all these students in filmmaking that are now thinking about virtual production because of the pandemic or whatnot. So I really like to make the point that for people out there, that virtual production is not only The Mandalorian and The Jungle Book and The Lion King. There's, like Haas was showcasing, and like all the fellows from the Unreal Fellowship have demonstrated, like there is so much talent out there, and the shorts that they're able to produce in like such a short amount of time with free assets and whatnot. That is also the promise of virtual production, of democratizing it for like everybody on all types of content creators, whether you're doing, digital humans or branched VR experience with, different types of narratives and et cetera, et cetera. Like it's really out there for everyone and for all the different types of storytelling that you're now able to do.
And it's accessible.
Sure. Where are they going to put them? In the chat?
Yeah, sure. Let's look. Okay, here. Let me see. Can you all see those? do you think technology like LED screens will be available for no budget filmmakers in the near future? What do you think, guys?
No budget is probably
no
a bit
budget?
of exaggeration.
No budget.
I guess that's referred to the
hard.
student project.
You can do it with
experimental project.
You've got a big screen TV at home. You can do it. You just have a very small.
Well, I guess you could.
It is possible. Like no budget.
Yeah.
It is possible, but also, if you don't have a budget, you also don't need a LED screen. Again, like LED walls serve a very specific purpose. They're not like the holy grail, the be end all. So you can create your no budget without your LED wall.
Well, I think
there's two types of virtual production, right? There's one type is full CG, and the other type is the LED screen. With the full CG content, you have got Unreal Engine that's free, and the asset store, as you can get some really quite cheap assets as well. You could really create something with very, very low budget, probably no budget at all, I would say, with all the resources that we have now. And also on some, even we had LED screens, that we had a cut down crew on the personal shoot on Rebellion as well. So I think it's a lot more accessible than people think.
Yes,
I'd like to address the no budget, because that is a tough question. But we're facing this right now. How do you get experience if it's not available? How do you hire the guys that have experience if it's not available? With time, it's going to be so accessible that individuals are going to be offering creatives the access at a no budget so that we could get the demand for the talent. So I'm actively having conversations with companies that have LED screens that are looking for creatives to actually create content at a no budget, to promote the process, to educate people. And I do think that it's something that Epic needs to step in on. It's one of our biggest gaps. Talk about gaps that were on here. I think there's a question down here and people said, it is one of our biggest gaps. How do we give individuals the training? I'm one of the only ones in the world that has a training as a virtual production supervisor in this tech that was actually in the room. And the demand is insane. It's actually made me realize that I need to train people at a no budget. And I am. I'm trying to share and democratize the process, because really people call it virtual production, but in the future it's going to be filmmaking. This is just filmmaking, because who's going to want to not live anywhere in the world that they want? And especially high-level creatives. They're going to go wherever they want, and we are going to enable them. So I do think that in the future there will be other avenues that are going to be, the no-budget option will come through education. It might have to be something where you have a very strong script and something planned out where you have to go to them and learn it for training. Obviously, it's not just free. When you buy if you buy a 75-inch screen at Best Buy, that costs money, but I do think there's going to be education options. I know that there are conversations I'm having right now to get some of that training. So
no,
I hope absolutely very soon.
We were talking about the cons, and I think one of the big cons at the moment that the industry is finding is that lack of talent, and finding people to be part of a virtual production crew. And also the sharing of your expertise, the sharing of the knowledge, and I know that there's lots.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. No. I know that there's lots and lots of there's lots and lots of educational packages being put together, and it's just really everyone sort of helping sort of spread the word, spread the packages, spread their knowledge. And also people sort of grasping onto it. A lot of it, especially at the moment, it has to be self-upskilling and self-taught. Everyone encouraging people to, watch that tutorial. It might not be the way that you historically have best learned, but watch those tutorials, watch those webinars, practice, install Unreal.
Learning about other industries, because the tutorials are one level, but I think all of a sudden we're saying that everyone plays together. So if you're a VFX guy that works in post, you should learn about who the DP is, who the production designer is, who the set designers are, what does production do? And then you should also know what pre-production does. What does it look like breaking down a script? What comes out of breaking down a script? How do you decide on, let's say, if you're a person that wants to do animation, how do you decide on what gets animated or not? It's a really interesting point where we're all being heard because we're all working together, and that's I find that very fascinating. It's a cool time.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Is there other questions? Because they're not popping out.
Well,
oh, there's another. There it is.
How effectively we can use cameras at LED screens? How effectively we can use LED screens for the virtual production? Are there some restrictions with camera movement in it? Okay, got there. Yeah. Are there some restrictions with camera movements in the LED screens?
I could address that so there's a. Hey, sorry guys, producers.
Everyone. So we'll just pretend he's not there. Go for it, Felix.
There are many restrictions. I mean, I think there's obviously the physical limitations of a lens looking into a screen, but just in real time, there are a lot of limitations because real time means that you have a finite amount of hardware power or power that you are going to tap into. And let's say you have 100 coins and that's your power. The camera takes 20 coins. The LED screen takes 20 coins. The technology to merge it all takes 20 coins. The virtual sets take a LED coin, a couple coins, and then you want to make characters and you ran out. And so you only have 100 coins. And so that's, I find one of the biggest limitations is with time, we're going to have more coins. We'll have 200, 300, and then we can have characters and photorealistic this. And but it's a double pronged question of the limitations of the lens of the physical aspects of it, and then the limitations of real time. So, I mean, I could go deeper in that, but I don't know. I don't think we want to go deeper.
You want to have any noise?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, are there any new terms, professions with the rise of virtual production? Absolutely, virtual production supervisor, real-time supervisor. Well,
the new
what else? I know
I've made up like 5 roles. It's a new thing because we have unions now too, like that don't allow you to use certain terms, but really everything's merging. So you need to come up with new terms. What do you call the set designer that can't be called a set designer because a union doesn't allow you to? You make up a term.
Virtual set designer, yeah. And then you have the virtual art department and everything that goes with the virtual art department and the virtual location scouting team, and just add virtual to any role, and there you go. You got a new
either virtual or real time or whatever. Real time,
exactly.
Real time artist.
And I think it'll eventually level out. The reason it's so split right now is because individuals see filmmaking separate from virtual production. And so really, your one production designer is going to work on set and he's going to work virtually. Your set designers, they're going to work on set and virtually. And we're having to almost massage the situation now because obviously we've had an established pipeline for a long time. And that means virtual production supervisor, all these roles that are emerging and just trying to find their place. But with time, I think it's just, hey, here's the set designer. Hey, here's the set decorator. And the set decorator, they already have their machine at home and their own photogrammetry set up at home, and then they capture everything and it all goes in, and then 3 months later they appear on set and it's set up the way that they remember they did it 3 months ago in Unreal. And so it's just that we're trying to break those things right now.
Yeah, and also the artist, the traditional VFX artist has to learn the real-time stuff as well. So at Rebellion, you are a real VFX artist which come from the traditional post. they're also doing the virtual set in real time. So their knowledge is expanded, and the team is brilliant here, and everybody's super smart. So they just have to adapt to it. But that's what it is.
I'll answer this one. So the virtual production growth to be polarized in different areas around talent, I think there's twofold. Yes, wherever there is a place to put LED screens, so that will be around traditional studios. That is where people get, go on set and it needs to be quiet and we need to work together to produce this content. And the flip of it is, when it's fully virtual, the CG, it's going to be completely democratized. It doesn't matter where you are. Wherever your machine is, you can enabled to be a creative and be a filmmaker. So all of the pre-visualization stuff that's been going on through the pandemic, as you were just saying, Felix, ship someone a box, get them to put the headset on, and they're there. So they can be in, the Sahara, the Yukon, England, London, wherever you want it to be. So I think there's a real split of the technology, even though it's the same core underneath, which is one of the amazing things, that unified asset pipeline. But one, absolutely going to need to go wherever they can put up the big screen and get everybody there to make the movie. And then the CG ones, wherever you want.
I think it's for now though, because the barrier of entry is still a little too high. And as we get better at listening to our creatives, as we get better at listening, software development, Epic is amazing at it in some areas. We just haven't found enough individuals. We're trying to do it in our field, which is virtual sets and art departments. As we lower the barrier of entry and an individual could go into a LED screen stage that is virtually and it reacts exactly like the one in real life, then you are actually getting real life experience in VR. We just haven't gotten to really dial that in, where Jon Favreau comes in and he's like, oh, this is just like real life. It's close. It's really close, but every creative has a different workflow.
It's not there yet. And just, no, please go.
Oh, just before we run out of time, I just wanted us to try and get across how can people, and we touched upon people trying to get experience at a difficult time, but how, from each of you very, very quickly, how do you think filmmakers can access virtual production? I think that there are different ways. Let's do a quick fire. How do you think that wannabe filmmakers or established filmmakers can access virtual production? So,
download Unreal. Go on to Unreal YouTube. That's it.
Basically, and then that camera.
Glassbox.com, and then watch all of Matt Workman's videos in YouTube, and there's a virtual cinematography channel also on YouTube, and there's a fantastic new book on virtual cinematography. I was actually trying to look for it to show it in the camera, but I can't see it. But it's Filming the Fantastic, and it's all about newer technologies and going from traditional filmmaker to newer filmmaking.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Who, me? Did I hear it? Yeah, so download Unreal engines and go on Epic Store, have a look at all the tutorial related to camera creations, but also have a look at in-display, which is the fundamental software drives the LED screens, but looking for a different solution of camera tracking as well. There's so many different solutions of camera tracking on the market, and have a look at that. And that book as well, obviously.
Did you say yours? Again?
Sorry, did you say Felix or Saul?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Go for it. I would say download Unreal, as he said, and learn about what different people do, because your skills translate to all different areas. So don't try to just change everything you know. Just try to learn about your peers. That's my advice.
Amazing, amazing. So I think we're about to run out of time. Thank you so much, panel. I'm sorry, audience, if there's been sound qualities for you. There were some sound issues for us, whether you can hear it or not. So I'm sorry if that put anyone off. But I still think that was a fabulous chat, guys. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and expertise. And I'll hopefully see you very soon. And if there's now silence, that's because I don't know when we're actually ending.
Yeah, thank you, guys.